Oh, what did I just do? Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give it just another minute. It's 10:01 to see if there's anybody else that might be having some technical difficulties getting on. Everybody
Well,
should
folks
be able.
like you can get on here, Shannon. Those
What's
young
that?
ones should be able to.
What's that, Lou? I'm sorry.
I said if old dogs like me can get on here, those young fellers ought to be able to.
They have trouble too sometimes. But can you guys all see my screen okay that says the GMD4 LEMA virtual meeting?
What's that?
You can see my screen that says the GMD4 LEMA virtual meeting?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Even
good.
in the name.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Glad to hear that. Okay. Now I'm going to put this. All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and get started. So we've got a couple of you guys on here, but I am recording this just so that you know. Several people wanted to get the information but couldn't participate for one reason or another today, which is fine. We've been having these public meetings in person. We had one a week ago Monday in Hoxie. Then we had the Goodland meeting last Friday, and then on today's Thursday, Tuesday, we had the one in Colby. So we're having the virtual one today, and then I rescheduled the St. Francis meeting for next Wednesday. So anyway, I'm going to jump into the AEM mapping data first and kind of give you some the information we got from that, and then we'll kind of do some discussion about the next LEMA, what the board's thinking, and seeing if I can get some feedback. Either be, you guys know how to get a hold of me, either here in the meeting or email or give me a call here at the office. But the AEM mapping, if we kind of go back to what that was that helicopter that last May, June, flew around with that large apparatus that hung 100 feet below it and then flew over a good parts of our district last summer it was collecting geological data. And it did that through the electromagnetic, like ground penetrating radar. How all that works exactly is beyond my education, I'll be honest, but there's videos out there and, and other things you can listen to. So I'm going to go next. Oh, good Lord. Let's see if I can. There we go. Here is, excuse me, the map of those flight patterns that they flew over northwest Kansas. You can see in that map they flew a little more close together when you get down in the areas a little south and north of Goodland, in that Goodland area. They flew those because we've got some decline issues that are a little more aggressive than other areas of the district, as well as when they did our model, the stuff from Colorado. It was an area that really, there was a lot of questions, more questions than there were answers on how to calibrate that and make our groundwater model more accurate. So they did that. And then you can see that area south of Brewster. They kind of flew that pretty close together. There's some, we're starting to get into some shallow aquifer areas there. The stuff south of Colby, there was some questions from the Kansas Geological Survey again, kind of on our model. And then you go east and then that's our Sheridan 6 area that they flew very, very, I guess you could say aggressively, close together anyway, to see get a good idea as to what was better idea anyways to what was going on over there. And then the whole project actually cost $750,000, and that was provided. We did not put up any money for that. That came directly from the Kansas Water Office, and the money that they got from the state legislature and the state water plant fund to do this. And it wasn't our project, it was the Kansas Geological Survey's project. However, when they say they're going to come and fly a helicopter, and they're going to fly to these areas in northwest Kansas. I said, we need to be a part of that as far as I want to make sure that it's rolled out properly, and that our stakeholders are aware of what's going on. So the data that I got is actually from them. It is their data. And so before I show this to you, when the helicopter would fly over, the data went to Norway. Then it went to Canada and then landed, excuse me, in our office 24 hours later after they had kind of sleuthed it all and made it presentable. The Kansas Geological Survey kind of camped out in our office for those 3 weeks. Just if there was any issues or anything like that, they were there to handle it. It was their project. But when the data started coming in, they did invite me in to take a look at it. So I have three areas that we're going to look at today. And you can kind of see those. And I'm going to go over the data, what that looks like, and what that means. First one here is the Sheridan 6, and there are two flight patterns represented here. There's a top one and a bottom one. The top one we'll talk about first. You can see that strip on the top is an aerial photograph of where that helicopter flew. That is what it looks like on the surface of the earth per aerial photography. Now you look at that graph or that chart there that says the LCI inversion line, and it gives that line. And this shows you what the helicopter mapped. So I'm going to kind of go through this. First of all, the yellows and reds are really what we're kind of paying attention to, as well as that blue below. The helicopter can penetrate up to 1,000 feet below the surface of the earth, and that's kind of what you're seeing here. I don't know if they went a whole 1,000 feet down or what it was, but this just gives you kind of a cross section of what the geology looks like underneath that red line from up above. Your yellows are going to be more of your gravels. And then I think that's right. I could be very wrong. Let me look here. And then yes, reds are going to be more of your sand and gravel. Your grays, and the blues are going to be your shales or your clays. And then the reds are going to be your more sandy regions of the geology. So these are obviously the areas that are going to be in the yellow and the reds are going to be your water-bearing formations, those that can hold the water in this. The blue that you see at the bottom is the pier shale, or essentially the bedrock for the Ogallala Aquifer in our area. Couple of things, you see some white lines, some are thicker than others that kind of are through this. This represents either a buried gas pipeline, which we're going to map those, or possibly on top of the surface, like electric transmission lines or anything like that. We had to map all of those because obviously when you're doing electromagnetic radar, ground penetrating radar, that's going to come back with a certain signature. So they truncated that data out. Then you see at the bottom it's a black, I'm going to call it the dashed line that's kind of right there along that blue pier shale thing. And that is where KGS thought the bedrock was. And they based this off of well logs. We got two types of well logs. One, well logs from the actual KGS that they did back in the 40s and 50s. They were just more observation wells. And then we have actual logs from drillers, those that did domestic wells or irrigation wells, stockwater wells. All of those well logs have been kind of put in there. And you can see those well logs and what they represent in little areas. I guess I can use my pointer here. Like this would be a well log, and then this would be a well log, this one here. And to kind of see the correlations to how accurate those well logs are. This one, not so much, or at least the top part of it. They didn't record a whole lot of pertinent material, but as we get down into the actual water-bearing formation, you can see that they began to a little more accurately describe what was there. So this line here represents what they thought was the bedrock based on well logs. Now this blue dotted line that goes across here like this actually represents the water table that was mapped January of 2024. So this is where it's at. And this is in Sheridan 6. So you can kind of see that where they thought the bedrock was in this location was pretty accurate on where they thought it was. We can see where some of the well logs kind of line up, but some don't. But we get also a good idea of what kind of material is left within the aquifer. And so you're not seeing a whole lot of, I guess you could say, good water-bearing formation here that's left. And you look at this between the black dashed line and the blue dotted line, and we're getting less resistivity. So less of your sands and gravels that would be a better water-bearing formation. So now we go down to another flight path that was used. This is also in Sheridan 6 down here. And you can see the flight path here. Now, no, the pilot wasn't drunk or anything like that. They are not allowed to fly over any homes. Or if there was a guy out there maybe working in the field on a well or something like that, they had to go around it. Anything confined feeding lots, shops, any of those things, they had to fly around. So that's why this is kind of important as well. So he's flying, and you can see he flew around something that would have been right here. I'm not sure what it was. But you can see here below, this is the signature that came back from the mapping project. Now, whereas before you saw a pretty straight bedrock area, which is what KGS had kind of assumed was going on beneath the Ogallala, or at least that's what the bedrock looked like. They knew that things like these peaks and valleys occurred, but they didn't know where or how deep or what they really looked like. And in the geology world, we call these paleo channels. So you can see in some instances, like down here on the left-hand side, where we actually have a little bit of deeper aquifer than what they had anticipated on this end. But yet you go, and if you look, this is only about a mile away. Just from here to here, you can see that they thought that the bedrock was actually lower. They thought the bedrock was lower than what it actually is. So, and that goes straight across for the whole thing. So we have peaks, and again we have valleys. We just didn't know where it was. But you can literally see here, we've got a really good thickness of the aquifer in this that's left, as opposed to, say, this over here that's closer to the middle. And you can also see that this is only a couple of miles away. So one thing that was really brought out to the attention of the Division of Water Resources, as well as GMD4, was accessing that deeper portion of the aquifer and having negative consequences to the integrity of the aquifer. So one thing that we have done right now, there is a moratorium in place that the Division of Water Resources put into effect that does not allow re-drills of wells any more than 300 feet, which is your typical re-drill. It's always within 300 feet. And we can get those processed really, really quick, like usually within a week, less than that sometimes, depending upon the emergency in the middle of August or something, from the Stockton field office. So we can still do those, still keep you up and running by all means. But if you're wanting or needing to move outside of that 300-foot range, we are currently crafting some language in conjunction with the Division of Water Resources to keep that to where if you do move outside of that 300-foot radius of the existing well, you will not be able to access or potentially access the deeper portion of the aquifer. So those are some of the concerns that DWR really posed to us was, the potential to chase water, which isn't so prevalent up here. It is in southwest Kansas a little bit, but that needed to be prevented because of it. So anytime you guys got questions, just jump right in. But I'm going to go ahead and go to the next set of data if you guys are okay with that. Now this is that area south of Colby, which looks a little different, quite a bit different actually than Sheridan 6, and that's why I asked to throw this in there. Again, you can see that flight line kind of at the top. But here you get a lot of peaks and valleys going on. Now the KGS knew that there were these peaks and valleys, but just like I said, didn't know exactly when or where. Or how they correlated. And it looks to me that they thought that bedrock was in most cases a little further down than what they had anticipated. As well as you can see also here, again, a lot of variability in the thickness of the aquifer. Here in the middle, you know, it's kind of almost there at the bottom as far as where that water level goes, but you head on over to the right and you get a much thicker region that can be accessed. And then you go down further. This is also another region south of Colby, and you can see here even on the left hand side just how much lower they thought the bedrock was than what it really is. And we get really, really thin portions of the aquifer. I mean, really nothing left here. But one thing I want to point out, there's nothing left in this area right here, but correlate that up here to the aerial and you can see that it's been that way for some time because it hasn't been developed anyway. So just how much of that pre-development and where that was is still unknown, and I don't know if they're going to really answer it, but you can see there's not a lot of, there's some irrigation here, but that correlates to a pretty big pocket there. As well as you can see some picking up here on the right, and you can see that there's a pocket there. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one, which is southwest of Goodland. And this is that area. This one's a little spread out as far as it's not so close together for the scale, but you can kind of see here again, you've got a really, really thin portion of that aquifer. We've got a lot of irrigation in this area for the most part from about this point on over, but then again, you can see how much more thicker that area is as compared to on the left-hand side. But it is very low as far as the water levels go and getting closer to that shale. Versus you get the one down below it, and we have on the left and the right hand side still some pretty decent thicknesses that exist, but there are still those peaks and valleys in those paleo channels. So that is the data that I have to present on the AEM mapping and what we have so far. One thing that the KGS wants to do is they're going to take this data and incorporate it into our model. We have a groundwater model. But if you guys have more faith in meteorologists than I do, then you probably have more faith in the groundwater model than I do. However, it is the best science and the best guess that we have, just like meteorologists do, in order to decide and kind of get an idea as to if we reduce pumping or increase pumping or change the gallons per minute, all those parameters I can plug into our model and get a graph within a couple of hours as to how they think the aquifer would respond in a given location. So this will hopefully make that a little more accurate, or quite a bit more accurate. So, but the success of the project was so good that they want to do GMD1 down at Scott City this summer, and maybe even start with GMD3 further on south than that. So can we request, there's a question, can we request a copy of this information for a specific area? I do not have it for your specific area, to be honest with you. I can most definitely send you the data that I have here that was given to me. But KGS has all the data, and when they incorporate it into the model, then we can definitely utilize the data to make predictions based on different scenarios that you may want to run. But I don't know. I don't know where they house this, or even if we could get it. I haven't asked yet. I just was happy to get what I got. So, any other questions? And if you guys want this stuff, I can even email it to you. Just send me an email at skenyon@gmd4.org, and I'll be happy to just email you this presentation, the slides, or however it is you want what I've got up here. I'm more than happy to send it to you. So.
Shannon, would you email that to me, please?
Yep, I will. Hello. Or if anybody else wants it and you just want to put your email in the chat, I'll get it written down and get it sent to you. So, or just email me and I'll send it to you as well. So, with that, I'm going to kind of move on to kind of talk about the next LEMA. We've been talking about it for about the last year. Last summer, I went out and did public outreach meetings again and kind of got an idea as to some of the parameters and things that we were looking for. I gave those to the board of directors, and we'll go over those here. First, I want to let you guys know this is the latest and greatest. It's a little under a year old data, but this is the interpolated water level change in Kansas from an average of 2002, 3, and 4 to an average of 22, 23, and 24. So, I really, it still shows declines, obviously, and we're looking at, you think about the first GMD4 LEMA actually didn't start until 2018. But I really think that we have some tweaking and some work to do, but it's not as bad as it was, at least in my opinion. We've come a long way, and I think we're moving forward with that. So with that, this is the proposed district-wide LEMA map. This was the map that we put in front of everybody back in like 2016, 17, something like that. Before we stripped away the blue and the green areas. And that's what this is. This is exactly what we utilize now for the LEMA map, other than this incorporates the blue and the green areas. So the blue areas are townships that have a 0 or like a 0.1% to a 0.5% average annual decline. And we're using the same years that we did before. Those are the ones with a little decline. The chief engineer, as well as I believe a board member, had kind of said, no, let's not incorporate that into the first LEMA. So we did not. We took those out. They did not have a LEMA allocation. We are now discussing, at least the board is in favor, as well as I haven't heard negative opinions anyway, of incorporating them into the next LEMA. So those blue areas could possibly be included into the next LEMA that would begin in 2028. The green areas do not have a decline problem, and therefore we cannot, by state statute, include them in the next LEMA. So those are just the green areas, and those areas, generally speaking, are alluvial, or there's no aquifer really there that even exists, or they don't have, or they're on the fringe, such as Graham County, and then up there in, I believe that's Decatur County. So that's what they're thinking there as far as townships. All of that stuff would stay the same. We don't want to create a mass confusion out of everything. So the zones and the township colors would remain the same, but we would include the blue areas at this point in time. It was also discussed to bring in like the municipal and maybe the stock water uses, and I've talked to the chief engineer on a lot of these things, and we really don't want to battle that just because 98% of the water used in GMD4 is for irrigation. But one thing that he said that we could definitely require, and that is a conservation plan. Those are required now, but not a whole lot of teeth is put into it. And if you're a municipality or stockwater user within the LEMA boundaries, it would definitely maybe add some teeth to that. So the board is considering that. There was a big question or big thing on the carryover, being able to carry over water from one LEMA to another. A lot of discussions on that. One thing that we did have put into, well, we got it approved in the state legislature last year, and that was a flexibility piece to, in the next, it can't be implemented now, but it could possibly be implemented if we ask for it and reduce enough in the next LEMA for 2028. And that is to treat the actual LEMA quantity as if it were kind of a multi-year flex account. So as of right now, as you can see on this, say you're in zone 3 in a yellow area, you got 78 inches to use over 5 years. As it stands now, you've got 78 inches over 5 years, but you still can't exceed your water rights. So you've got that restriction as well. If we were to reduce this 78 inches down to a certain number and cause for more conservation, the state will allow us to request that number be a true 5-year quantity. So say, I'm just going to throw this out there, say that gets down to 70 inches. You now could pump all 70 inches if you wanted to in the first year, not worry about over pumping your water, right? Because that would be kind of be put on hold. Pump all 78 inches in 1 year, but you'd be off for 4. Or save it all up and pump it the very last year if you wanted to. Or not 70, but the 70 inches, that was all hypothetical. But the chief engineer is not going to approve that unless we see some additional cuts to the current LEMA. And so that's really kind of what we're looking at right now. What number those cuts are is anybody's guess. Nobody's really, I have heard everything from a 10% to a 28% reduction. Some people like the percents, other people don't like the percents. They'd rather just tell everybody, an inch or two. So that's why I'm doing the public outreach, to see if anybody's you guys have comments, questions, or any suggestions. I am collecting all of these comments. I'm typing them up. I've had board members have attended all of the in-person public meetings anyway. But this one's being recorded. But so any and all of the comments I'm taking, would entertain anything you guys have, suggestions, and I will send it their way. I would like to have something, kind of a draft plan. It's my goal by the end of this summer. A draft plan something that we can submit to the Division of Water Resources, a request for renewal, so that we can get these hearings going and we can get something in place so that people can plan. I did hear that loud and clear. The last one, as to waiting to the last minute, was not didn't do anybody any good. And I hear you there.
Shannon, I think, the further we can look ahead to know where we're at is going to be awful important. One thing I always think about is if we have any young or middle-aged farmers buying land, the water restrictions are going to have a hell of a lot of importance to them and their banker to survive.
Absolutely. And that's what we're trying to do. I do plan on coming out again next summer after weed harvest. I'll do another virtual meeting, but I'll also do in-person meetings to kind of let you know where all of this is developed and where it's kind of landed. And to get your input one more time before we get something finalized to send to the Division of Water Resources.
Have we had many bankers attend these meetings?
I've had a couple, but not too many of them. And yeah, that is kind of. I will say, because it's mostly affected irrigators, that my emails and things like that I do send out to announce these things a little more personally actually comes from the email list I get from the state for those that supply their email addresses when you submit your water use reports. So, but I do think that as we get to a more finalized document, that there will be definitely more, there might be postcards and things like that sent out like we've done in the past. But as far as, and we're really talking about affected irrigators, I want to talk to my irrigators. Thanks for that, Lou. Anything else?
Nope.
Well, that was about 30 minutes. I really appreciate you guys jumping on here. And if you got anything, I think you guys know how to get a hold of me. So I appreciate your time today. If there's anything else, I will go ahead and close this out.
Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Mhm.
Bye.